All right, gentlemen. Well, I'm going to say gentlemen because I don't know what's going on with Dizzy. But welcome. My name is Vladimir Vivian. I am a software engineer. Been in the industry for quite a bit. For the last few years, been focusing on Go, and uh, very close to the Go community and Kubernetes and that sort of thing. Today, what we're going to do is talk about Workspaces. Workspace is a new feature that came out with Go 118. I didn't go and kind of track it back to its origin as far as look up the PR to see why it was needed. But as I started to look into it, I realized immediately why it was needed. So what I'll do is because Workspaces was very new to me as well, I took some time out and kind of capture what I came across in some notes, and I'll pull up my screen in a minute, and then we'll look at the notes, and then I'll jump in my terminal and we'll start discussing what it is and how it works, etc. All right, there you go. You should be seeing my screen. And yes, I'm gonna do a tiny presentation, nothing crazy, because that's the way I learn. I like to write things down. So Workspaces, yeah. So if you've been writing Go for a while, you probably have run across GOPATH, right? If you remember what GOPATH was early on, it was basically a way to logically organize packages for a project, but it was very narrow in the way it prescribed that your project had to be organized. And early on, people complained about GOPATH because if you were coming from another language where you can organize your project in any way you want, and then you come to Go, you did not appreciate how prescriptive GOPATH was as far as organization of your project. Had no support early on, didn't support any kind of modularity. It was hard to do multiple dependent projects. Again, forces your package to be resolved remotely. So you had to, if using local package, you could use local package, but it was kind of awkward to do it. And then we'll see that as we move along, some of that and how that got resolved with Workspaces. So much better GOPATH is what I'm calling Workspaces. Basically allow you to have dependent modules to be organized as a logical unit for basically your project, where everything is resolved on disk. You don't necessarily have to go and pull down the source code from a source code management system. The source could be locally, and it'll get resolved using your workspace. Now, Workspace introduces a new CLI command called work. So we'll see in a minute, when you want to create your workspace, you're going to use go.work. And similarly to modules, go.work will create a go.work file. And in that file, that's how you will organize your modules and let the Go tooling know where your modules are. And a workspace, again, is comprised of local modules and directories. So the image on the right shows you that if you have a directory, and in that directory you have that directory could be considered your workspace. In that workspace, you will have a file called go.work, and go.work will have entries pointing to different local location on your machine where your modules are. And this collection of modules is basically your workspace, and that's really the gist of the whole thing. So What you do have to do though is once you declare a workspace, um, in in order for dependency resolution to work best, you have to issue a command from the workspace, right? So as we'll see in a minute, once you set up your workspace to be a certain directory, then the Go tooling will use that information to resolve the dependencies between between the modules that are hosted in your workspace. Any questions? All right. So what are the benefits to even do all of that? It gives you a simpler workflow. Now, one of the big benefits is now you can support mono repos, and where you have multi modules, independent modules that are interdependent. And we'll see what I mean by that. Usually, if it's a small project, that project will be independent. If it's a library, it'll live by itself somewhere. But a lot of time you'll have large projects that keep everything in one repo, but inside that repo you'll have modules that are independent, but can have interdependencies. And each module will have its own mod file and will move forward. It can move forward in the release process by itself. And using Workspace make that really easy. Whereas before Workspace, it was kind of awkward because you had to do module rewriting for that to work properly. And the last point is switching between workspaces is something that is now you can do easily, where you may have a configuration for a certain build type where for yet another build type, you may have a different configuration for another workspace. And that approach allows you to do that. So that's all the notes that I wrote down. So now we can switch to, you should be seeing my my terminal.
Yep.
Okay, so what I have is a directory, and I was playing with Workspace earlier, so you'll see the go.work file, but I'm gonna blow that all away so that we can do a walkthrough to see what it does and why we need it. Okay, so first I'll go ahead and remove go.work. Now, I have a library called hello lib. So if we go inside there, we'll see. You see that library has its own Go mod. And it doesn't do a whole lot, matter of fact. Look, you should be seeing my editor at this point. That's a little bit too big. Okay, so hello lib is basically a map of hello world in different languages. And when you call hello, this function, it returns the translated hello world in whatever language that you specify. So that's the library. And like I said, this library has its own module. It's pegged to this package name, to this package path, which is GitHub, my name, and /hello-lib. Now, what I have not done is push this to push it to GitHub at all, right? And this is something that's very common where you're working on a project and you want to start a module, but you don't want necessarily push the module out yet to its repository or to its public repository. Or you may want to play around with the code, but not ready to push it out, but still make that module available to other to other modules in your project
Chicken and
without
the
having to
egg.
push it. Say it again.
It's a chicken and the egg.
Yes, chicken and the egg. Um, so, you know, it may be something new that you want to play with, but you're not ready to push it out yet, and it's not in some kind of repository yet. So anyway, so that's what we're going to look into. So we have hello lib. It is a module. It has a module path, but it has not been pushed. Okay. So the user of that module is this code called greeter. It's a program. So if we look, it has its main, and basically it imports hello lib. I'm calling the function that's exported in my program. Now, let me do this. Let's go back to, so we said that, let's see, where am I? Hello, let's go to, okay, we're inside greeter. I'm gonna blow away the mod. So just so I can show you what this is all about. So now, I'm going to go in it, go mod. So we're gonna say, okay, which is great. So it start the module, create a module and tell me that I need to tidy it up, okay? Now, it will fail. The reason why it's failing is because it's doing what Go has always done. I'm telling it that I have a dependency on a module, and its very first inclination is to go try to pull that module where it thinks that that module reside, which is this location. Well, as I told you, that module is not out yet. I haven't, it's something I'm experimenting with. It's not ready to be pushed out. So it's local. Now, what we have done in the past before Workspace is this. What we've done is so if you look in, let me see, do it. Okay, so it hasn't done it. What we could do is we will go back to the library and kind of fudge the library to make it, no, actually, I gotta think how I did it. There we go. So what I have to do, and we haven't used the workspace feature yet, but I'm going through this exercise to show you what you had to do before, and one of the reasons why the workspace makes sense. So what I have to do is edit my Go mod to tell it, hey, in my code, if you see this module path, replace it with this relative local path. So that's what I just did. So now if we look here, you'll see that it did that. Now, what I have to do is, now if I do go mod tidy, now it will resolve itself. And okay, so it added the replacement and also the requirement. So when it sees that path, it'll look in my directory structure and and do the right thing. And now if I do go run, let's just do this, and it works. Now it works, that's great. But the problem is now I have something in my module that is dependent on a relative path. So that's asking for trouble, because if I push this to production or say, hey, it's ready, now folks who come behind me and pull down that code, they have to make sure that they have this path exactly as I have it on my local machine. and they have to do this, and et cetera, et cetera. Matter of fact, if you read the documentation on module rewriting, it'll tell you, please do not push your code in production like this or with the relative path still attached to your Go mod. So what they ask you to do is basically push the dependent, the library, basically make it available where it needs to be, which is in this case, this location in GitHub, and then remove that rewriting, that replace. So this workflow is kind of awkward and clunky. It works, but you know, in your CI/CD system, you have to do these sort of things to make sure that, okay, I'll do the rewrite, I'll do the replace locally, but before I push, for production, I got to make sure that I remove this, et cetera, et cetera. So this workflow right here is one of the main things that Workspace fixes. All right, so now, any questions? All right, so yes.
No questions.
Okay. So now what we'll do is we're gonna blow away the mod. Let's see. Then we're gonna reset it. Actually, let me go in, make sure it's mod. Doesn't have anything crazy. Okay, so this mod is okay. We're just gonna start over. All right, so I'm gonna restart Greeter. All right, now it's gonna tell me, hey, so if I do this, go mod tidy, it'll fail again, just like before, because it's saying I cannot find this thing that you depend on. I cannot find it. Now, instead of doing this, the little workaround we did earlier with the replace, I'm not gonna do that. What I am gonna do is I am going to go one level up, and you don't have to go a level up. I could have made Greeter my workspace, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go one level up. Just to show you this works. So if you look here, you see Greeter, you see the hello lib. And if I try to, let's play around with this real quick. If I try to say go run Greeter, it'll say, hey, first of all, it's saying that from the location I'm at, it doesn't understand it. It's not a module. I need to turn that into a module in order to do anything, which is what you'd expect. Now, I'm not going to turn it into a module and then take that away because it still wouldn't work. But if I do, yeah, it still wouldn't work. But anyway, so what we'll do is go work in it. Okay. So I'm going to set up a default workspace, and I'm going to initialize it with those two modules as being part of my workspace. I don't have to include everything else that's listed, all the other modules. I could just say, this is my workspace. These two things are considered my workspace. Remember what I said earlier. Now, because the workspace is really considered as like it's your project, and a default workspace in this instance will be named go.work. I can have multiple workspaces, right? For my default workspace, this is it. So now if I look, I should say I see a go.work, again, my default workspace. If we look inside, we'll see that it has the greeter and those two directories as being part of the use clause inside the workspace. Now, if I try to do what I tried to do earlier, which is to run greeter, it will work. Now, notice I didn't have to change anything in the dependent libraries, in the dependent source code. Hello lib, I didn't have to do anything. Hello lib remains hello lib. It has its own module configuration that didn't get touched. And so, as we did before, we don't have to change anything there. And inside greeter, we don't have to change anything there either. It has its own it has its own module configuration. I didn't have to do any replace to point it to the right path for it to work. Now the module file is being used to resolve to basically map my modules to the directory list that we have here. So that kind of, in a nutshell, that is it for Workspace. You can do workspace rewriting as well. If you want to get, if you want to further customize your mapping with respect to their package path, you can do that as well. But what to note is now I can work on my greeter code, or I can push lib. I can do something, push lib independently of greeter. And these two things will not have any strong dependency, because the dependency now is being resolved by the tooling using the work, the go work file. Another thing you can do with this is you can pull down something that, like, let's say I didn't own hello lib, right? But I want to play around with it. There's a feature that I'd like to see hello lib have, but it doesn't have it. So now I can pull hello lib, put it in my directory structure, do the change, play around with it, see see if it works. And I don't have to rewrite the location where hello lib lives. I can use the correct path, the correct package path upstream for that project, or for that module, tinker around with it, and not change the way that the dependency and the way that dependency maps in my source code. I don't have to change any of that. It just works, because the workspace is using this mapping for your local directory to figure out where things are. No longer does it have to go and forces you to push your dependency first upstream in order for things to remain as they're intended. As we saw earlier, if you don't want to wait to push if you're not using Workspace, your next best workaround is to do that replacement dance that we did earlier, which it's kind of awkward anyway. But now you don't have to do any of that. Your project structure stays as intended. Your dependencies can stay as they're intended, along with the path, their package or their module path, and they can stay as intended. Their module configuration can stay as intended, and you don't have to touch that. You don't have to do any rewriting. The rewriting is being done for you by the tooling using go work. And that's it. I mean, that's in a nutshell, that is it. And I believe you can also, I think Carrie had mentioned you can specify a go work file as well. And I didn't do that, but I think one of the things you can do is you can tell the tools to use a specific go work file, but by default, it'll use the go.work file or the workspace file. It'll use the default workspace file, which is go.work, but you can by any means use different workspace file. Any questions? I told you guys this was going to be short because it's not a whole lot to it. But it is something that I expect to see to be used fairly a lot. One of the projects I'm exposed to on a daily basis for my job is one of those projects that every module is managed separately, or every package, I should say, is managed as a separate module. So I can see something like that making the build time way more straightforward and easier to kind of wrap your head around. Whereas before 118, it's a song, it's a dance of rewriting. You go and look in the make file, you'll see all these rewriting things going on. And now you don't have to have that. You can just have your workspace file. Matter of fact, I just thought about it. One byproduct of having this is smaller make files or even no make files, depending on how complex your build is. All right. Any questions?
No, but it's pretty cool. I think it'd be a great tool, like if you wanted to contribute to a project, to a module or something, and you can work on your feature branch locally. Test out your mistakes, your work, and then
Yeah, exactly. As I was, messing around with this, I was like, oh yeah, this would be awesome because you can, you no longer have to wait for the code to be pushed or merged or none of that. You can, play around, make your changes, and when you're satisfied, you can be like, okay, now I'm ready to kind of PR against something. But yeah,
a chance you can work offline too.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Because the resolution happens. The Go tool will do the resolution on disk locally. It doesn't need anything else. It's not going to try to hit GitHub. And I'm kind of looking away because I did a build. Let me see if I can do it here. Which one? I wonder if it'll do it. So this is the -X. When you put -X, it spew out all the steps that it does to get you a build. So it looks like it's using mostly the caches. It doesn't go anywhere outside of your machine. Everything is local. So yeah.
Yeah, this is I think one of the features that really piqued my interest about 118, more than all the hoopla around generic. So this is this is cool to see it actually in use. I had a project I worked on was it last year before last, and it was all these. I was being, I don't know, old or stupid, one of the two, and had all these nested modules, and it was a hot mess.
Yeah. And yeah.
I could have used this.
Yes. I mean, I think folks kind of got bitten early on with module thinking that, hey, other environment, other languages, there is such a thing as submodules and et cetera, et cetera. And the reaction was to do the replace command. But I think now they have it right where it's the right thing is being done with Workspace. And now finally we are at a point where there's the notion of a project, which is kind of what Workspace is. The notion of a project, it doesn't, before Workspace, Go assumes that everything that's in your directory is part of the entire project. But now it's you being more meticulous, and you can specify, no, these two things are what I'm interested in, and that's it.
Yeah, I like that.
Or everything.
Yeah, it's not going to pull something in and get confused or whatever.
Right.
So, yeah,
Right.
that was cool.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. It is definitely something I can see myself use. Like I said, where I work today, we have some large open source project that I can definitely see this as being a time saver. Yeah.
And you said that workspaces are on by default in 118 now?
I believe so. Yeah, because I think it is. I think it is from what I remember reading. Go ahead.
You mentioned using a different file other than go.work or go.work, and
yeah, let me pull
yeah,
the.
you can do that with that go.work environment variable you were talking about, and you can also use that to
That's what
turn
it was.
off. Yeah, so
Yeah.
you could say go.work
work.
equals whatever
That file is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So go work. I don't know, some file.
Yep.
And then we go run. Obviously won't work. Okay, it must be an absolute path. Oh, that's interesting. It has to be an absolute path. Okay. And I think you can do off.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, it's almost like you never had that file.
Right.
But at the minute you have that file, and that's what I was saying that's what I meant by it's on by default. The minute it sees that file, it assumes that that particular directory is a workspace. But if you take that file away, then you're back to, hey, what are you trying to do? Should this be a module? If so, you need to basically initialize it as a module.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Good stuff.
Yeah, this is great. But yeah.
Thanks for demoing that. Pretty cool. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, you got anybody using 118 yet? Because I upgraded just so I can start playing around with this. I haven't even done any generics yet.
Yeah,
as hot as I was about generics last year. Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I don't have any compelling reason. I just
exactly.
haven't felt a need yet to upgrade to 118. So.
I did upgrade to 118, but
Uh-huh.
I'm not necessarily using any of the new features.
Right.
It's just something for me, security-wise.
Right.
Always upgrade to the latest version.
Yep.
Bug fixes.
Absolutely. And I believe 118, they did some performance tuning as well, if I remember correctly too. So it might be worth. I don't remember if it's on all platforms. It might have been some platforms. I don't know. I don't remember. But I remember reading like performance went up for some stuff. I can't read.
I can't remember the details either, but it sounds familiar.
Yeah. So
I think definitely. It was compile time. I don't know if it was.
Yeah, it could have been. Could have been.
I don't know if it was runtime or I think it was compile time.
Yeah.
Optimized compiler.
But yeah, this is good. I'm glad I looked into it. It's one of those things that you're probably gonna need it sooner than you think. And the other thing too is I don't know what IDE you all use. I don't know if I set it up, but I think it's in the tutorial. Is it? No, it's in here. Yeah. the VS Code Go release also knows about. Basically, Go work is seems like it's going to be like a like I said, a project file. It's going to be your Go work. So
Cool.
yeah. All right, gents.
Awesome.
That's all I have. I don't know if you have any additional questions. Any question in general about Go or anything else?
I do not. Anyone else on the call?
No, not at this time.
But I will say this is very interesting and
Yeah, thank
something for me to chew on because I maintain, I write for my own personal use, some command line utilities for a mail server. So I
Mhm.
like to find a way to organize those,
Mhm.
and they need to have their own, each one's own version of things. So right now, they're each
Yep.
one in their own GitHub repository.
Yes.
But this might be a step closer to being able to organize these into a folder tree.
Mhm.
So I can say, okay, I'm ready to work on one of these utilities. So I go to the main folder and then work in the subfolder for each utility.
Yep.
No, that's exactly the mess I was in.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I've mentioned before, I'm a Kubernetes admin. So I was writing plugins and CLI tools for Kubernetes, and I'm like, okay, let me create this repo that I'll keep them all together.
Mhm.
And then I hated my life for it. So
Yeah,
I
if you
ripped
do
them
that
all
mono
apart.
repo.
I ripped them all apart. Now they're back in their own repos, and
Yeah.
yep, perfect.
Yeah, you should be I think one of those workplace document talk about it, but thinking about it, I'm not sure how exactly you would do it, but you should be able to give, or at least I don't, if you have everything in a mono repo, how would you tag each module, or how would you tag a module independently? That's the only thing I'm not clear
Yeah.
about. Not that it can't be done, but I'm not sure how you would do it.
Yeah, I know that my Visual Studio Code, I think, complains because I have more than one main, because
Mm.
each subfolder would have a main as well as a go
Mhm.
mod and go.mod.sum, whatever it is, go sum,
Right.
and all that. So uh, GitHub is one challenge, and the Go tooling and stuff is
There's
another
another.
challenge.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. But it looks like VS Code will understand now with 118 what it means to have multiple sub. One other thing, I didn't go into it, but one thing you can also do is I think you can tell it to be recursive. Like it's not necessarily the immediate subdirectories. It can keep searching and so you can have modules inside of modules, which at that point I don't know if it's a good thing, but you can do it. And using Workspace will be able to resolve your modules and do the right thing, even if you have a module tucked inside another module.
Cool.
So yeah, cool. Like I said, I'm Vladimir. I really appreciate the opportunity to bring this to you all. It was great.
Well, thank you for digging in and sharing it with us tonight. I appreciate your time, and thank you for those that joined us tonight. And if you're watching the recording, we'll hopefully catch you next time.